Let me move on to this larger debate about race relations in America. If you were president of the United States today and you look at you have this racially motivated massacre that took place in Charleston, but we've had some social unrest as well, this trust issue between African Americans and law enforcement officials. How would you be addressing this today if you were president?
I think the best way to address it is the way that we have seen from the church members there at Emmanuel AME Church. If you look at the pastor who was murdered, it occurs to me that here is a shepherd who laid down his life for his sheep. The greatest example of biblical love, of Christian spirit. And when you hear the family members, as we heard on that very powerful interview earlier, it reminds us that Christianity is not this cartoonish, contemptible, laughable faith that people today try to marginalize. It is a powerful force of healing and reconciliation. And while I know there are many people in our culture who don't want people to bring faith into the discussion, Chuck, after watching that family and seeing the members of the church in court the other day, I would say that most Americans stand back in awe and maybe would understand that it is precisely faith that would help this country have true racial reconciliation. Let me just add this personally. When I was a young pastor in my 20s, I stood in front of what had been an all-white church. This was well over 30 years ago. And I welcomed the first African-American member to that church. I had death threats. There were people who said they would leave the church. But instead, I held my ground. I said, if he goes, I go. The result was our church grew exponentially. And even though people said that they would cut off their giving, the very next month we had a record level of giving in that church. Sometimes it just takes courage to stand up and call out something to be evil and to express that the reason it's evil because it is a defiance and a defilement of God's grace. And we've seen God's grace in the Emmanuel AME Church and its members. A great testimony to the leadership of that pastor who instilled such a faith in his members that when they were faced with the greatest crisis of their experience, they reflected all that he had taught them. That, I believe, is the greatest witness we could hope for.